It's not about the injury. It's not about the injury. It's about the recovery. It's about the recovery.
Hi folks, Paul Padda here with the Paul Padda Podcast, coming to you from Red Chimp Studios. I am honored and privileged today to have attorney extraordinaire Karl Armstrong on our show. How are you, sir?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
You have an amazingly diverse background. You've done so many different things, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. So explain to our folks out there watching the state court. Explain the difference in terms of the burden of proof between a state civil case and a criminal case.
Okay, there are two different burdens of proof. There's a lower burden of proof in a civil case. That's a preponderance of the evidence. What that means is more likely than not that the event that they're trying to say happened. In a criminal case,
If there were scales of justice, it would be like
if
this.
the scale of justice like this, and then the person that wins would have this much.
Yeah.
And it's not very much. It could be like that.
51%
like that,
versus
51%.
Yeah.
That could be 50.001%, just as long as it gets over that 50% threshold.
Right.
Beyond a reasonable doubt, that's the high standard in terms of criminal. That's more like 75 to 80%, so it's more like this.
Yeah, almost 100%, I would say.
And
really.
yeah, and the reason why it's that high is because there's a difference between civil and criminal law. The difference between civil
See,
and
now
criminal.
you're talking like a government prosecutor, 75 to 80%. As a guy who defends these, I'd say it's about 100%. You cannot have any doubt in your mind.
You give me about 90. That's what you probably say to me. But the difference between like a civil and criminal and those kind of things, the reason why the standards are so high is because the difference in penalties in both of the cases.
Mm-hmm.
The difference in a civil case is the only thing that someone can do to you is either take your property or take your money.
Wow.
That's all they can do.
Yeah.
They can't kill you, they can't eat you, they can't put you in jail.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference between a criminal case, because a criminal case, they can put you in jail, and they put you in jail for a pretty long time, both whether that's the federal courts or the state courts.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about someone's liberty and us being in control of their liberty, that's the reason why the standard is so much higher in criminal as opposed to civil. That's also the reason why in a civil case, you don't have to have a unanimous judgment.
Yeah.
You can have 4 out of 6. As long as you have a majority, you're cool. But in a criminal case, all 12 of those people have to say that person is either guilty or innocent. If
Yeah.
they don't, they hang.
That's a great point, yeah. I think Louisiana is the only state in the country where you don't have to have a unanimous jury verdict in a criminal case. And that state has come under a lot of fire. That seems nuts to me, that you would have kind of a standard where just the majority mob rules, but
Yeah.
without a unanimous verdict from a jury. And I think they finally have gotten around to changing that law.
Right.
But that seems really crazy. But
That's-
that's exists to make sure, hopefully, that people don't get wrongfully convicted, even though that still does happen.
Yeah, and the thing about a criminal, because I remember when I was a public defender, people always asked me the question as to why are you a public defender? Because why are you defending people that are guilty? It's that guilt and innocence is not a question. I never asked my clients whether or not they did it or not.
Yeah.
That's not relevant to my defense. My defense is to make sure that the prosecutor does his job. If the prosecutor does his job and plays by the rules, he should win 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I only point out the inconsistencies between what the prosecutor does or doesn't do. If they're sloppy, I win.
Yeah.
If they're not sloppy, I lose.
The court that you're running to get elected on is going to be a court of general jurisdiction, civil and criminal. How, as a judge, how do you balance that?
How you balance it is you have two different types of calendars. You have a criminal calendar that is prepared by the court, and you have a civil calendar that's prepared by the court. And you also have people in terms of civil matters to help you, like your discovery commissioners and other officials within the court, arraignment masters and things of that nature, that can help you manage how things happen. Because basically by the time it gets to the district court, all you're there for is to either do bail hearings or setting matters for trial in terms of making choices with that, or taking pleas. Those are the only things you do in a criminal matter. In a civil matter, basically you do one of two things. Either the case you handle the motion practice. Either it's motion for summary judgment is done in terms of making a determination as to whether or not there's enough evidence, motions to dismiss, in terms of civil matters as to whether things should go forward.
Yeah.
You do the trial, and you can do the trial either with a jury or without a jury.
Mm-hmm.
But that choice is made in both the civil and criminal context by the defendant or the plaintiff in the civil case, because the plaintiff is usually the person that has been aggrieved, and they're saying that I filed a complaint and therefore I want to get X, Y, and Z from the court because this person did me wrong or this corporation did me wrong or something of that nature. But they can make the choice as to whether they want a civil trial with a jury or a civil trial with a judge.
What, in your opinion, based on your very impressive legal background, what are the qualities that make for a good judge?
The qualities that make a good judge are compassion. That means that you can understand and put yourself in the shoes of the person that's coming before you. Fairness, in terms of having high ethical standards, being just in terms of decisions you make, and also one of the big things is making decisions in a timely manner. Judges as well as juries and litigants and defendants want decisions as quickly as possible, because then that gives the lawyers a chance to make the determination with their clients as to whether or not they're going to appeal it to the next level. But if you take 6 months to render a decision, then someone may be sitting in county jail for 6 months while you're waiting to give them a decision. You need to give them an expeditious decision so they can make a choice as to whether or not they like what you did or don't like what you did.
Yeah, that's very true. Very good points.
And those are the things. And one of the biggest things I think is you got to listen to folks. And listen to them all the way through, because people want to tell their story. And you have the responsibility to listen to that story and take that into account when you ultimately make a determination. And if you're a judge and it's a judge trial, then you make the determination. But if it's a jury trial, you really don't make the determination. And people have to understand that in a jury trial, the person that makes the decision is the jury. They make the determination as whether someone's guilty or innocent. And the judge only acts as the referee at that point. But only in a bench trial is which the judge has to make the decision in a written form that they get to choose which way it goes.
Now, I understand if you are elected, you would be only the third African American judge, correct?
That's correct.
So we have Judge Tim Williams, who's a great judge.
Yes.
Judge Tiara Jones, who's done a great job. She's new to the bench. And then if you were elected, you'd be the third.
That's correct.
Why is there, and we don't have a lot of Hispanic judges either.
That is correct. That is true.
Given the diversity of Clark County, in terms of both African Americans and Latinos, why do we have, it seems to be a lack of diversity on the bench?
I think that sometimes it's very hard for people to put their hand up and say they want to do this. I have been practicing law in this town for 30 years. I'm just now putting my hand up and say that I want to do this. When I went through judicial selection, one of the times I made it to the top 3 by that group in terms of going to the governor as a possible appointment for the bench. So I do have qualifications in terms of that kind of thing, and even an independent body determined that I was qualified to do this kind of job. But
and I think it should be made clear that even if you're not a person of color and you're a judge, that doesn't mean you cannot be a phenomenal judge.
That's correct.
Obviously, or be open-minded and empathetic to everybody's viewpoints and be sensitive to those issues. But I think it's sometimes important for a community that's so diverse to see kind of a reflection of itself on the bench. Sometimes.
I want that little kid that comes into a courtroom to see people that look like them. And if they see people that look like them, then that's something that they can also aspire to too. That part of this is opportunity. Because if you don't see anyone that's like you in a particular group or profession, then why would you want to be part of that profession? That you get tired of being a trailblazer all the time.
That's really true. I remember watching the OJ Simpson trial, and I think one of the biggest things that came out of that was for America to see someone like Johnny Cochran, totally in control of the courtroom. Whether you liked him or disliked him because of the client he was representing, I think the consensus was this man is an amazing lawyer.
Yes, he is.
Everybody believed that. And I think that was a game changer in the minds of a lot of people who had an image of Gregory Peck as the lawyer.
To Kill a Mockingbird.
To Kill a Mockingbird, which was my image, and I loved that movie. But I also, when I saw Johnny Cochran, felt as a minority myself, like, wow, look at this guy. He raised the bar for all of us.
And the key to the game is we can do this. It's not a question. Your ambition is what stops how far you go. Your drive and your determination stops how far you go. We have to be role models to people and say that, look, if I can do this, and I'm not the smartest guy on the block, you can do it too. All you need is use some hard work and determination. That's all you need.
Karl, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Wish you the best of luck with your judicial election. You've obviously got an amazing background. And we've learned a lot having you here today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, folks, that's a wrap for another episode of the Paul Padda Podcast. Until next time, stay safe. And as we head into summer, stay cool. Take care.
It's not about